How's it going, everybody, and welcome to the Talk Sports Show with Alec Pecano on Monday, January 22nd, 2024. Let's get right into the show. Here's my college basketball top 25 rankings for this week, as well as players of the week, and conference games to watch. And I do these rankings based on how the teams play, so we're going to start with the teams that fell out of the rankings. Falling out was Memphis. They lost to South Florida this past week in a stunner that nobody saw. I actually called it on the show last week. If you listened to the show on Thursday, I believe it was, I said the reason I didn't pick USF as one of the game picks that day was due to the fact that I knew they would pull the upset. So Memphis fell out, Washington State, George Washington, and Indiana. Now to the top 25. Welcome to my rankings, West Virginia. They had a major upset last week against Kansas. They beat Kansas over the weekend. They are now number 25. And I love how they've been playing under their interim head coach. I love how they've been playing this year. Number 24, another team that was not ranked last week, Northwestern. And you may see them, you may hear me talk about them in conference games to watch in a little bit. But Northwestern's at number 24. They're another team that they were in the rankings at the beginning of the season and they fell out, but now they're back in the rankings due to how they've been playing. A team that I've been surprised at that's been playing really well is at number 23, and that is Drexel. Now, I do watch a lot of college basketball, but I didn't know much about Drexel coming into the year because I didn't know they were one of the better teams in their conference. Now I do, and they are at number 23. Number 22, FAU. They keep falling. Last week, the 3 teams I just gave you were not ranked last week. FAU was. They were number 20. They have fallen down to 22. I do like how they're playing still, but the problem I have is if they keep losing, they're going to end up being not ranked anymore. And if they keep winning, they may still fall down and teams may jump them in the rankings. Number 21, another team that's been playing really well this year, Nebraska. And they have a big game against a team that's in my top 15 this week. But Nebraska was not ranked last week, like I said. But they've been playing really well. And they slide into the rankings here at number 21. At number 20, up from 21 last week, is Iowa State. They're another team that has been playing really, really good this year. And I've been surprised how really deep and how good the Big 12 is this year. Number 19, Colorado. And again, if you disagree with my rankings, I will take all the heat you can give me in the comments down below. But Colorado's another team that has been playing really good. And they moved up from 25 to 19 last week. To 19 this week. And I like how they've been playing. At number 18, Texas Tech. They finally get their due. They finally get put on my rankings. And I love how Texas Tech has been playing the entire season. They found their head coach in basketball. Number 17, they're up 1 spot from 18 last week, North Florida. They are on a big time winning streak, and you may see them twice in my games to watch for conference basketball this week. Number 16, Ole Miss. They fell from 12 last week all the way down to 17 after losing badly to Auburn, who you're going to see later on in the rankings. Number 15, Arizona State. They moved up one spot from 16. They are now number 15 in my rankings. They're another team that has been playing really good. They've got a couple big games this week, but they're not going to be on conference games to watch. Number 14, South Florida. I love how they've been playing, and they moved up because they upset. They moved up 2 spots for upsetting Memphis last week and knocking Memphis out of the rankings. Memphis was number 19 last week in my rankings, but they got knocked up because USF beat them. Number 13, Ohio State. Now I'm going to explain why Ohio State's here and why they're not further down. It is due to the fact I trust them more to continue to win and get more wins. But inconsistent shooting is what's hurt them a lot. With the fact that Ohio State cannot, if they can't shoot the 3, they have to drive the paint, and that scares me a lot. That is why they're 13th. Number 12, Baylor. Baylor was number 10 last week, but they got upset by Texas. So, and the rule is if you lose, you get moved down a couple spots, depending on how much you lose. They only lost by 2, so I docked them 2 spots in the rankings, but I think Baylor can get back in the top 10. Number 11, Kentucky. Last week, Kentucky was 13. They moved up 2 spots. They had a big, I think it was triple overtime win against Georgia over the weekend. I love how Kentucky has turned it around and been playing really well. Number 10, Arizona. They moved up 5 spots from 15. Arizona is another team that fluctuates. One week, they win both their games. The next week, they split. Then the next week, they win both their games. So they're kind of that roller coaster team. One week, they go undefeated. The next week, they split. They go 1-1. Then the next week after that, they go 2-0. But if Arizona can consistently put together winning weeks, you could see them back inside the top 5. At number 9, Auburn. They were number 12 last week. They moved up 3 spots to number 9 after upsetting Ole Miss. And Bruce Pearl, again, has his Auburn Tigers playing really well. And I appreciate the fact when an SEC team plays really well. And they have a big game this week against a crosstown rival of theirs. That is in Tuscaloosa. And you may see it in a minute on my games to watch this week. At number 8, Houston. Houston was number 9 last week. They moved up 1 spot. They're another team that I need to consistently see them win games in order to move them up further. At number 7, this is a huge drop. It was Kansas. They lost to an unranked, at the time, West Virginia. And I think Kansas is another team that if they can consistently string wins together, they can be in the top 5. At number 6, Dayton. Dayton moves up 2 spots from 8. They're another team that they find ways to win. You can't beat them. If you try to, you're going to lose. I love how Dayton's been playing. Number 5, Wisconsin. Wisconsin's moved up 1 spot. Greg Gard is a really good coach in the Big Ten, and I enjoy watching Wisconsin basketball, even though I'm an Ohio State fan. At number 4, North Carolina. They also moved up a spot in the rankings. And I appreciate a good ACC team when I see it, and that is North Carolina. Number 3, UConn. They moved up. They were number 4 last week. They're now number 3. And I'm starting to give them the respect they deserve. They deserve to be in the top 3. At number 2, it is Purdue. They moved up. They were number 3 last week. They moved up to number 2 with Kansas losing last week. Zach Edey is him. Zach Edey is the best player in college basketball. You can try to convince me otherwise and do so in the comment section, debate about it. But where I stand is it's Zach Edey against everybody else for player of the year. And number 1, stayed the same as last week, Duke. Jon Scheyer has Duke playing really good. Now here's my conference players of the week for college basketball. In the AAC, it is Sultan Miguel, South Florida. He had 2 big games last week for USF. One of them was the upset of Memphis. He helped ignite that upset for USF last week against Memphis. And I wasn't surprised when I saw that he had over 20 points. He is consistent with getting over 20 points per game, is Sultan Miguel. So he has earned the Player of the Week in the AAC. The Big Ten Player of the Week is Julian Reese from Maryland. Now, you may say, why isn't an Ohio State guy? Ohio State had a few guys I could have chosen for Player of the Week, but I chose to go a different route, and that was go with Julian Reese from Maryland, who's had a really good season so far. And personally, I think he's the third best player in the Big Ten behind Zach Edey at number 1 and Roddy Gale Jr. at number 2. The Big 12 Player of the Week is Max Abmas from Texas. Abmas is really good. He is the best player on Texas, in my opinion. And I think Texas can go far in the tournament if Max Abmas is healthy and keeps producing. And for the 3rd time in 3 weeks, the ASUN Player of the Week is Chaz Lanier from North Florida. And this is his 3rd time, like I said, being named Player of the Week. He was named it 2 weeks ago, and then in November, he was named Player of the Week for the ASUN. And Chaz Lanier has stepped up big time this year. And my ACC Player of the Week is Blake Henson from Pitt. He's another guy that's played really well this year for Pitt. Here are my games of the week to watch for conference. My conference games to watch this week. Tonight you've got one. It is number 7 Kansas at home against Cincinnati, and that is tonight at 9 o'clock. And honestly, I do think this is going to be a good game. Cincinnati has been fairly good in basketball this year, and they always seem to be good in basketball. And I think that Cincinnati could pull the upset here. Don't be surprised if Cincinnati pulls the upset. Tomorrow we've got 3 games. 2 in the Big 12, 1 in the Big 10. And the Big 10 game is number 21 Nebraska at number 13 Ohio State at 7 o'clock at 7 p.m. Yeah, at 7 o'clock tomorrow night, you got Ohio State number 13 in the country in my rankings, and Nebraska number 21 in my rankings. They are playing each other tomorrow night at 7 p.m. And then in the Big 12 tomorrow night, it's unranked Kansas State at number 20 in my rankings. Iowa State, and I'm 95% sure that game is at 7 p.m. So those are two big games to watch. Oh, correction. Tuesday. Also Tuesday at 7, you got number 25 UCF. Number 25 West Virginia, at unranked UCF at 7 o'clock. And then another game in the Big 12 that's at 7 o'clock is Oklahoma and Texas tomorrow. The Red River rivalry on the basketball court. Wednesday, you've got number 9 Auburn at Alabama at 7:30 p.m. And then at 7 o'clock on Wednesday night, you got number 20 Iowa State at home against unranked Kansas State. Thursday, there's two games. It is JU, Jacksonville University at Eastern Kentucky at 7 p.m. And at 6:30 that same night, number 17 North Florida at Bellarmine. Saturday is a loaded with good conference games. And I'm going to give you 6. So in the ASUN on the Big 12, the Big 12 on Saturday at 1:30, you got number 7 Kansas at number 20 Iowa State. And then at 2 p.m., you've got Lipscomb at Stetson. 4 o'clock, you got number 17 Bellarmine, North Florida is Thursday at 6:30. Saturday at 4 is Eastern Kentucky versus at home against number 17 North Florida. And the AAC at 4 o'clock, unranked UTSA at number 14 South Florida. The Pac-12, 5 p.m. Number 19 Colorado travels to Pullman, Washington to play Washington State. And in the Big Ten finale at night, it is 13th ranked Ohio State at 24th ranked Northwestern. Those are your conference games of the week to watch in college basketball. And just a little programming note. Saturday, I don't normally stream, but Saturday night, 8 o'clock, will be on YouTube and Twitch. I will be streaming my live reactions to the Royal Rumble. I will not be able to play the Royal Rumble on the stream because it'll get copyrighted, but you will see my live reactions to every single Rumble match and the Royal Rumble match itself. But we've still got more to do here today. The next segment is the record predictions for 4 teams: East Carolina, Washington, Ole Miss, and Missouri. These are way too early predictions for all those teams and their record. So the first one is East Carolina, and I have them winning 6 or 7 games. And let's get to their schedule. So East Carolina. So East Carolina's first game is at home against Norfolk State. And I think they beat Norfolk State to go to 1-0. Then they play at Old Dominion. That's going to be a win. So they're 2-0 to start the year. Then they come home and play App State. Now, the saying goes about App State is that they tend to win games they shouldn't win. And I think they beat East Carolina. So East Carolina's 2-1. Then they play at Liberty. I think that is a loss, so they're 2-2. Then they go into conference play and play at Army. Lost 2-3. They beat Charlotte on the road, so they're 3-3. Lose to FAU 3-4. Beat Navy 4-4. Lose to Temple 4-5. Lose to UTSA 4-6. Beat North Texas 5-6. And they beat Tulsa 6-6. So East Carolina goes 6-6. That is their way too early record prediction from me. I think Washington's the next team. Yep. Washington is the next team. Here we go. So Washington's 2024 schedule. They start the year at home against Weber State. I think they win that, so they're 1-0. And Washington, I have winning 8 or 9 games. So let's see how many games, their way too early record prediction I get. So they start the year 1-0. Then they play at home against Eastern Michigan. That's a win, so they're 2-0. Then they play the Apple Cup against Washington State. I think they're going to start 3-0. So then they start conference play against Northwestern. Now this, I would have said if DeVore was still there, this is not even close. I think they beat Northwestern, but now it's a toss-up. Right now I'm going to give it a win, but it could easily be a loss. So they're 4-0 going into the Rutgers game. I think they beat Rutgers. So that's 5-0. Then they play Michigan at home. I think they lose to Michigan, so that's 5-1. Beat Iowa 6-1. So they go into their first bye week 6-1. I think they beat Indiana 7-1. Lose to USC 7-2. Beat Penn State 8-2. Beat UCLA 9-2. And lose to Oregon 9-3. So Washington's way too early record prediction from me is 9-3, with their 3 losses being to USC, Oregon, and Michigan. Ole Miss is next. So let's get to Ole Miss. So Ole Miss starts the year at home against Furman. I think they beat Furman, so they're 1-0. And Ole Miss, I have winning 10 or 11 games. So week 2, they play Middle Tennessee, the Blue Raiders. I think that's a win, so they're 2-0. Then they play Wake Forest at Wake Forest, win 3-0. Georgia Southern, they have the tendency to beat Power 5 schools, but I don't think they beat Ole Miss. So Ole Miss is now 4-0. Going into the Kentucky game, in their first conference game, I think they beat Kentucky, so they start the year 5-0. Then they play at South Carolina, 6-0. Lose to LSU 6-1. That's their first loss. Then they go into the bye week. So they go into the bye week 6-1. They come out and they play Oklahoma at home, 6-2. They lose. They beat Arkansas 7-2. Lose to Georgia 7-3. Beat Florida 8-3. And beat Mississippi State 9-3. So they go 9-3 in the SEC. Their way too early record for me is 9-3. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I will be doing every conference will be getting its own breakdown when we get closer to the season, which is in August. Every conference will have its own show when I premiere my college football show at the end of July, beginning of August. And the last team that has a record prediction today is Missouri. And now we're going to look at Missouri's schedule. And I have Mizzou winning 8 or 9 games. They start the year against Murray State. I think that's a win, so they're 1-0. I think they beat Buffalo 2-0. Beat Boston College 3-0. Beat Vanderbilt, so they start 4-0. Then they get into a somewhat tougher part of their conference schedule. They come out of the bye, play at A&M, so they're 4-0 right now. I think they lose to Texas A&M, so that's 4-1. At UMass, that's a win, so they're 5-1. And they come home and play Auburn. 6-1, they're going to beat Auburn because I have Auburn going 7-5. If you didn't hear, Alabama, I think they beat Bama, so they're 8-1. And then they play Oklahoma at home after their second bye week. Loss, 8-2. Beat South Carolina, 9-2. Beat Mississippi State, 9-2. And beat Arkansas, 10-2. So they have another 10-2 season, does Missouri. And now I'm going to talk about the Buccaneers and grade their season. So they started off the season really good. They started off 2-0. So then you're like, okay, maybe they're going to have a really good season. But then they started to struggle. And I'm like, okay, we might miss the playoffs. But we ended up at the end of the season reeling off a bunch of wins. Other than losing to Atlanta, which we shouldn't have lost to Atlanta. We should have beaten the Falcons. We won the division and made it to the wild card round. Nobody picked us to beat the Eagles. No one. Out of all the content creators on YouTube, I think I was the only one that picked the Buccaneers to beat Philly in the wild card round. So we get to the divisional round, and again, nobody picked us to beat Detroit. And I think everybody was picking Detroit to blow us out. And we ended up sticking with Detroit. We only lost by 8 points. If we would have got the 2-point conversion and Baker wouldn't have thrown the interception at the end of the game, I think we would have beat Detroit to go to San Francisco. But that was probably delaying the inevitable. If we wouldn't have beaten San Francisco. San Francisco is a whole different. They're a whole different team. Let's just face it. But we lost to Detroit, and so I'm going to grade this season and give it a B-, because everybody was at Todd Bowles. They wanted him fired, including me, but my stance has changed on that now. I think Todd Bowles should be back next year as a head coach, and as long as Dave Canales doesn't get hired to be somebody's head coach, he should be back as the offensive coordinator. And I will tell you here in a second what I think the Bucs need to do in the offseason in order to get back to the playoffs and compete for a Super Bowl next year. But here's my offseason look ahead for the Bucs. First and foremost, you have 3 guys you need to re-sign. Number 1 being Mike Evans. You do not let Mike Evans go to free agency. If you let him go, that is the biggest, in my opinion, that's the biggest mistake you can make, is letting Mike Evans leave and go to free agency, because somebody else will give him the bag and sign him. Somebody that needs a number 1 wide receiver will give Mike Evans a lot of money to go to their team and be the number 1. Number 2, re-sign Baker Mayfield. And I'm going to tell you the contract I'd give Baker. I'd give Baker around a 3-year, maybe between 16 to 18 million dollar contract, loaded with incentives like he did this year for that 1 year deal he was on. And then the third guy to resign, Antoine Winfield. And I need to say something to the NFL here. I'm sorry if I go on a little rant for a second, but NFL, you need to get rid of the Pro Bowl if you're not going to put the right guy in the Pro Bowl. Antoine Winfield Jr. should be a Pro Bowler. He got snubbed. It's disgusting that you're going to put somebody else in the Pro Bowl and not put Antoine Winfield Jr. in the Pro Bowl. It blows my mind how you do Pro Bowl voting. Put the right people in the Pro Bowl. I'm sorry for that, but if you agree with me, let me know in the comment section if you agree with me that Antoine Winfield should be in the Pro Bowl. But I would give Winfield Jr. I would lock him up to at least a 4-year deal and make him the highest paid safety in the NFL. And the last thing I would do is I would let Devin White walk, because I like how KJ Britt played toward the end of the year. And the snap percentage just came out for yesterday, and KJ Britt outsnapped Devin White, which tells me that the Buccaneers are thinking that Devin White's going to leave in free agency and go somewhere else, which I would not be. I'd be mad. I'd be sad if he left, but I think Levante David is the better linebacker. And then you've got two young guys in Shavastia Dennis and KJ Britt that are a lot better of a linebacker duo than Devin White. And if y'all disagree with me about that, please let me know down in the comments down below. I enjoy replying to my subscribers' comments, and I would love to see more engagement in the comments down below on my videos, on y'all debating on the topics that I cover and giving your opinion. In the draft, what I would do if I was the Buccaneers is I would take an offensive lineman in the first round. And then if somehow Mike Evans does leave, in the second round is when I would take a wide receiver. Unless you feel like you need to trade back into the first round to get one of the top tier wide receivers, which would be a Keon Coleman. Marvin Harrison's not going to be there. And I've come to that realization. He is not making it out of the top 5. If he does, then all those teams are, everybody in the top 5 is dumb. Let's just face it. All those teams in the top 5 are not smart. If they let Marvin Harrison Jr. slip outside the top 5. But that's my grade on the Bucs season and their offseason look ahead. Now, the last segment today, previewing the Magic's upcoming schedule. I have 6 games on here for the Magic, and I'm going to go over them right now. Tonight, they did play last night, and I called that upset. I said it on my show yesterday morning that I did for NBA and college basketball. I said I think the Magic will pull the upset here on Miami, and they did. Tonight, they played Cleveland. This is probably their toughest game of their upcoming schedule, other than the last game on February 2nd, which I will get to in a minute. So they play Cleveland tonight at 7. That should be a really good game. Then Friday they play at Memphis at 8 o'clock. Then Sunday the 28th, they play the Suns at 6 p.m. Then on Monday, the 29th, they play at Dallas. They play the Mavericks at Dallas at 8:30. And then Wednesday the 31st, They play at San Antonio at 8 o'clock. And then Friday, February 2nd, they play at Minnesota at 8 p.m. I think if the Magic can make it out of here with going, I think they might beat Cleveland. That would be 1-0. They'll probably beat Memphis, which will make go 2-0. And Phoenix is probably going to be a loss, so they're 2-1. They might beat that. I think they lose to Dallas, so 2-2. Beat San Antonio 3-2, and I think they can beat Minnesota. So if they can go 4-2 in that the span of 6 games right there, that automatically puts them back up in the top 5 in the Eastern Conference. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to turn on your notifications for future uploads. And if you haven't followed me over on Twitch, please follow, because you don't want to miss the Talk Sports Show. Going forward, it'll be on YouTube and Twitch. And let's build a community on both. On Twitch, I'm trying to hit 600 followers by March. And on YouTube, I'm trying to hit 3,000 subscribers by June 1st. But, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for me today. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up, like, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and that'll do it for me today. I will see you back here on Wednesday. Tomorrow is Falcons Franchise exclusively on YouTube at 9 a.m. But, ladies and gentlemen, also before I leave, let me leave you with a word of positivity. As I've been told, God is always here for you, and He listens. When you pray to Him, He listens and He delivers your prayer. And you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But that'll do it for me today. I will see you on Wednesday morning with another episode of the Talk Sports Show. Have a wonderful rest of your day.